Module 2 is about negative automatic thoughts, or NATs for short. Because the more we understand ourselves and our thoughts, feelings and behaviours, the easier it becomes to change them. The better we know ourselves, the better we can survive and build resilience. Resilience is the key to managing anxiety and stress. Because when we have all the tools and the techniques and the resilience behind us, it's easier to deal with the challenges. So in this module, we're going to work through how to change our negative thoughts to positive, and then actually to realistic. Because we need it to be realistic to stick. When we're too positive, the brain starts telling us that's not true, so that doesn't really matter. So we just swing back to the negatives. So we're going to find the middle ground and get the real realistic way. Thoughts and beliefs can be positive and negative. But a negative thought or belief actually disempowers us. But a positive thought and belief will empower you. This works with both chatters, our inner chatter, what we say to ourselves, our inner voice, and also our external chatter, what we express towards others and we talk outwardly, and also what we're saying about ourselves. Because if we're saying that I'm no good, or I really struggle, or even I have anxiety, I can't do anything, we're already telling ourselves, I have anxiety and I can't do anything. So what can you do? So life's over because I can't do anything. Or there's a different way of putting it, is in I can sometimes suffer with anxiety, but I have it under control. So how we word things actually affects us. So we're going to really take a look at that in this section. Because our chemical changes when we're in a negative state. We've learnt about this in module 1. Negative thinking actually traps you. It shuts down the brain. It shuts down the frontal lobe for us to actually think. We read about that before, but just even negative thinking, not just a stressful situation, a negative thought shuts that part down. Where positive, empowered thinking just floods the brain with serotonin and helps you to be more creative, and it helps you find a real clear solution to a situation. By holding on to our negative thoughts and beliefs, we just create pain and fear. And what comes from pain and fear? Well, anger comes up from that. It just rears itself because it's all been held inside. We don't actually make our life easier by not dealing with our fears. We actually really relive the pain over and over and over again by pushing it to one side. When we're thinking we're doing this, it just comes back up and we relive it, and then we push it back down and then it rears itself again. We're all very aware of that. But are we aware that we're creating it? By doing this, we can be doing it consciously or unconsciously. We're offloading our pain onto others. And if we don't offload it onto others, we're actually holding it inside us and beating ourselves up. Either way, it's a really, really unhealthy behaviour towards others and ourselves. When we're actually blinded by anger, we can make choices that we regret. We are the ones that end up getting hurt. No matter how hurt we are or angry we are, we don't always need to retaliate or have the last word. I know you really feel like it sometimes. It builds up inside that you need to lash back out, or if I just get the last word, it'll be fine, I'll feel better. It is so easy nowadays to fire back, especially with texts. Something comes in, you don't have to think about it, you can just say it back, because we're not seeing the effect that it's having on others. And this happens with emails and things like that when somebody's upset us. But are we reacting with a clear head? Do we actually really need to react at all? Having the last word and being right actually takes away good memories. Because if the body is reacting with a negative, and from module 1, when we're having a negative thought and everything, it makes us stressed. We're kicking off the fight or flight, and that's sending things all around the body, as we realise. The hormones are going off, going to the brain, the chemicals going to the brain, and it's the thing we remember because it's shutting everything else down and bringing all that up. The adrenals are pumping, so the body's remembering all this, and we start to lose all the good. And that's why we can stand there and go, God, everything just feels like it's bad at the moment. I don't remember anything good. Because we've forgotten about the nice things. The walk that I had. The dog that come along and played with me. Or my dog that come and gave me a cuddle. The birds that were singing. The beautiful flowers. The lovely little thing my child made me while they were playing. We forget all that because the body's pumping about the anger and frustration, or the negative thing about what's ever happened, or you're annoyed at the person who was driving and pulled out in front of you. So we're losing all the good little bits because it actually just takes them all away, which is really sad when we think about it. So a good idea to do, if someone's done something like a car's pulled out or anything, or a text or an email's been done, and even if someone said something to you that's been really hurtful, it's always a good idea to stay calm and collective. And I know that sounds a lot easier than what it is, but a good way of doing that is to actually take a breath for 30 seconds. And it also can be longer if you need it. You can take a few breaths. You can go back to the breathing technique of breathing in and letting everything out. You don't have to do the big loud noise. But what you do need to do is just breathe in and out and let out all the negative. And then just allow it to let go, and remember that it's their anger, not yours. When we actually fight back and demand, what's your problem, when somebody's upset us, we're actually spending more time with that unhappy person. And we really need to think about it. Do we really want to? Just by being right, do we want to be spending more time with that? We are trying to stop all this. So by stepping away, you can be where you want to be, and then allow them to be how they want to be. We can't change anyone else. They say leaving the room before the bridge is burned is a sign of maturity. Also, we need to think about, are we the ones that are lashing out with the anger? Are we offloading pain onto others? It's too easy to offload pain than actually feel pain. Facing how we're feeling can be quite tough. It's very easy to push it down. But when we're pushing it down, like we were saying earlier, it starts to bubble. It keeps going, it's here, and someone will say something, and that's when these triggers happen. So you need to think about, are you hurting others? What are negative automatic thoughts? Well, that's the thoughts that seem to just pop into our head without any warning. They often trigger negative feelings and then drive us to behaviour that is in an unhelpful direction. There are lots of types of negative thinking, and you will see from the list in your workbook, they range from focusing on the negative, nothing ever goes my way, negative self-labelling, I'm not good enough, I'm a failure. And then there's some other just common ones of mind reading. You know, I can tell that person doesn't like me because of the way they're behaving. We have no idea what's going on in that other person's head. They could have something going on and thinking of something else, but we've blamed ourselves. And actually, if you spent the time and asked, they'd probably go, God, no, I wasn't being funny. I was just thinking about what I've got to do in my next meeting. Or, oh, God, I was just thinking about that I haven't sorted this before I go shopping. And just because they're not there 100% doesn't mean mind reading can cause a lot of problems. There's about dwelling on the past, which, you know, we're always just harping back to when things went wrong. And there's the should statement. Everyone should be doing this, and if not, they should be punished. And the need of approval. This can be quite big for a lot of people. I can only be happy if somebody likes me or somebody approves of what I do. Because then we go through life trying to prove ourselves to everyone instead of just going through life and doing what's right. That can cause a lot of anxiety for people. Developing a balanced thinking can break the pattern of negative thinking and feelings. Because we all can slip into them. So what we need to do is sometimes look at what we're thinking about instead of just thinking it. And a great way of doing this is questioning what we're thinking. So here are some questions you need to think about and ask yourself when you feel yourself slipping into this negative thoughts and feelings. We need to think about what evidence is there that this thought is true. And really think about that. And then also think about what evidence is there that this thought is not true. And what would I tell someone I loved if they were in this situation and had these thoughts? Because I guarantee you will behave and think differently if it's towards someone else than yourself. Write down what you would say to someone else. And if my automatic thought is true, what is the worst that can happen? And then the last one is, if my automatic thought is true, what is the best thing that could happen? Because good things can come out of things that we might be worried about. So think about that. Instead of just thinking about the bad things that could happen, think about the good things. What else is there? If I lose my job, what are the bad things? Well, you know, I'm going to worry about my money, and what about this, and what about that? But then also it could be, well, I didn't like that job anyway. I could go and look for a new one. Or that gives me time to do the garden I could do while I'm looking for a new job that I've always been going on about. Or actually, I really wanted to write a book, so why don't I spend some time doing that? There can be positives out of change. So once you have the evidence and you've generated it and combined it, you can form a balanced thought. This thought is unlikely. This thought is likely to be much longer than the original hot thought. Because a hot thought is quick, like, oh, panic. Well, it's going to be a longer thing, like we were saying. This could be bad, but there's this. Creating new alternative thoughts doesn't mean we simply develop a new thought which is the complete opposite to the negative. Going from one extreme to the other doesn't always help. It's not particularly helpful at all. We actually need to be realistic. So we're going to create a more balanced, realistic thought. As you can see from the diagram, we've got the negative, the hot thought, and then we've got the positive that's way over the other side. And generally when we're trying to be like that, it's so extreme that we'll think about it for a little while, and then after a while the brain and the body starts to go, no, that's not true. So we won't hold it. So what we want is the realistic one in the middle. Once you have a negative thought, decide what the other extreme is. Going from a negative to a positive thought. Then, by using the questions and the evidence you've got, we can start creating a realistic thought. You also might want to ask the following questions. Taking the information into account, is there an alternative way of thinking about the situation? Can someone I trust to understand my situation give me a different way of thinking? Because when we're stuck in our own stuff, sometimes it's really, really hard to think of it differently. So find someone you trust and talk to them. And they might have a different way about it. Because like we were talking about earlier, everyone can give really good advice to someone else. So go and take that advice from someone. So if you're stuck, don't just go, well, I can't do this. Look elsewhere. And that's why when you're working with clients and you can talk through this, you can be the one that's looking at their situation differently and helping them to put this into practice. So you can see from the diagram, it says everyone hates me, which is not true. Not everyone in the world does hate everyone. And then the opposite, the real positive, is everybody loves me, which isn't true either. So like I was saying, you can think about that for a while, but then you'll realise it's not true. So to get the longer version of the realistic thought, we've got Sarah might not like me, but I know others do. Or it can be, I think that Sarah doesn't like me, but plenty of other people have complimented me and have been nice to me over time. Another way of doing this is putting a positive on a negative. You put it on the end of the negative thought or belief to get a realistic one. So instead of saying, I can't do this, we actually say, I can't do this yet. So you've given yourself, no, I can't do this, that's true, but that's at this moment. I will be able to do it soon because I can then figure out how to. So it can be, I can't do X, but I can do Y. Pause the video when the sign comes up and list your negative thoughts in the workbook. When you've done the list of all the negative thoughts that come to your mind, then pick one negative thought and fill in the chart. And remember to ask the questions when you're going from the negative right over to do the opposite to the positive, And then to get your realistic thought and pattern, ask the questions of what evidence is there that this is true? What evidence is there that this is not true? What would I tell someone else I love if they were in this situation? And if my automatic thought is true, what's the worst that can happen? And if my thought is true, what is the best that can happen? And come up with a realistic one. So pause the video now. So this is the end of the theory of module 2. And now it's time to move on to the practical part and learn some more tools for your toolkit. But before we do that, let's have a quick recap on what we've learned in this module. So we've had, what are negative thoughts? So what are negative automatic thoughts? NATs. The anger comes from pain and fear and how to manage it. And managing our negative thoughts. Moving from negative thought to positive to realistic. So now it's time to work through the toolkit for module 2. Watch the videos and listen to the meditation. And I will see you in module 3.